Hello, everybody, and welcome back to A Whole Turkey's Chat. We are here to have a discussion with Mattvs.Politics. All right, so I think he's ready. I'm basically ready. Wait, hold up. French roast coffee. Uh. Okay. Hello.
Hey,
Oh,
you there?
yep. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can hear me. Okay. Voice and video.
I can't hear you if you can hear me.
Bob. Now can you hear me? Oh, no, because I'm on push to talk. Fool. You
Mhm.
fool! Sorry. I didn't realize I was on push to talk.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I was just sitting here, like, mumbling to myself, trying to figure it out. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Decent Sunday.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I don't know how to start.
For sure. I can take the lead if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
For sure. So I guess all this started when we made a couple videos back and forth. I made one originally talking about like just asking people the question like what was the intent of these people, like what were they trying to do, like what was the goal, why would they be at the Capitol, and then and what would have happened if it was Black Lives Matter who had done the same thing. And I think that I had someone else who had thought a similar idea that you had, that I was doing I was basically just calling that since they were white or black, that it had been treated differently. And then I made another video responding to that, that was demonstrating that these groups had been treated differently. And in my mind at that point, I was comparing the actual group Black Lives Matter versus the actual group of people who had been set to protest and like plan the protest at the Capitol. And like just because to me a lot that like Black Lives Matter had been seen and deemed as terrorists, and then we had a group that had done the same thing, and it seemed like the people who had called them terrorists were a little bit hesitant to label this group under the same. And I felt like their actions being more extreme, that's what I was trying to bring light to. And then you made a response to that video that was calling. And do you want to fill in that part?
Yeah.
The first video.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Cause I think I don't know where. I guess when I saw your video, I mainly saw the comparing of the June 1st to the Capitol riot, and I had seen this over and over again. And so then you made your response and you said you were addressing the claim that the Capitol riot was justified because BLM had rioted too, and I didn't realize at the time. That was my mistake. I think after I watched those and everything, I think we'll still agree on actually a lot more than maybe we thought originally.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even label this as a debate, because I really do feel like we're going to agree on a decent amount. I went through a bunch of your takes, and I even prepared some conversation for after, because I think we might burn through this topic incredibly quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, so I guess there was a few things I still wanted to touch on. Now that you said that. And obviously some of this might change now that we are able to talk one and like are like, hey, like actually we actually I had kind of missed the point originally. The first thing is I know you had claimed I had said that the police were not aware of the possible threats. That was not necessarily true. I know that they were aware of those possible threats. I actually talked in a video about that when I was responding to consciously. And then the second thing was I never said that the disparity between the two things was deserved. Those were two things that I think were a little off. And then overall, I guess the point I was trying to get at, again, this is my mistake because I didn't realize that you were talking about something else, which was I don't like how people were comparing. I think anytime you actually compare these two things, I think there's a way to compare them, but I think most people who do are just, it's a losing game for them because they either compare it very badly or they don't know enough about it or whatever else. And so that's my issue, or it's been my issue with many people who make videos on these two subjects.
Yeah, I 100% agree with your last take, and I think that even like the mistakes that you had in misunderstanding my original point are 100% fair, because I also fell into that trap of trying to compare them to make a point when the comparisons between the two of them are just so messy that it's better to just step back and acknowledge that these are two, like, they're very different events. And
Yeah,
you kind of got just it kind of got into the nitty gritty of June 1st versus Jan 6th, and it was, I don't, it just seemed like I rewatched it a little bit, and I can't necessarily say 100% that I didn't that my video was free of some of the race tone of it just being like, hey, if the people who had stormed it were black, they would have been different. Like, it was not my intention, but I can't say that tone wasn't in my video.
sure,
So,
sure. Yeah, I mean, and like, and like, the main thing I was even touching on, like, I touched on this with a lot of other people,
mhm,
the race aspect, but even the thing that I was touching on, which was again a mistake because I didn't know what you were talking about. That was I don't even know if that was like like comparing the racialized aspect. The main thing I had a problem with a lot of people is that they acted like June 1st can be compared to January 6th solely
mhm,
based on response of police. And I have a really big problem with how the police was, or the police
mhm,
response on January 6th and the FBI and whatnot, because I know that they did have information. Um,
mhm,
but I have a lot of problems with, because I know that, like, when we're looking at the BLM protests and then the riots alongside that, because I do think you should, separate the two.
mhm,
They started like days before June 1st in many other cities, and so it's
mhm.
just, yeah, yeah, that was very frustrating to me from other
Yeah.
people. Not necessarily you now that I look back,
Mhm.
but well, for sure.
And I even kind of found myself preparing the argument where that just because the violence was prepared, it was prepared in a different city, and that doesn't like necessarily mean that they should be ready for it. But I was rereading that argument over a few days, and I was like, what the fuck? No. If I know this group did something else in another city, and I know that group's coming here, I should be prepared for it. And I just realized that like that direct comparison, I kind of like threw myself in a loop. And I partially think it was because, admittedly, I was a little bit triggered on this whole subject because one of the first people I'd reached out to who I consider to have more right leaning views on things than myself, they said that this was fair because of the because Black Lives Matter got to do their protests and riots, that this one was fair. And I think that actually really jaded my view going into like a lot of other people's opinions on this because I hadn't even it just seemed like something that just couldn't be to me. Like how could it just be fair? Like it seems like a crazy notion. And I just kind of stepped back and reaffirmed that not everyone feels that way.
Right, I could totally understand that, because I would disagree with that as well. I think that's a little
Mhm.
silly to say that. Like, I mean, I think there's a good conversation to have, like a nuanced conversation to have, like, of,
Mhm.
the justification between the two, because I don't think necessarily the riots of either of these two were justified, but you know,
I
they
can
both
agree with
bring
you on
up
that.
different questions. Yeah, yeah. So that's
Mhm.
cool. That's cool. Because I was actually going to ask that, if what you thought about the justification of the BLM riot specifically, because I don't agree
Mhm.
that the Capitol riot was justified, but
Yeah, so I don't think that the riots at BLM were at all justified, and I really do think that they hurt the cause massively. Like having there being cities burning for like 7+ months was not a good look at all. So just that, and also just the straight up damage they did is I feel is unjustified, and I felt like that would be an obvious position. But while trying to look into this, I heard someone ask to take, well, what about the American Revolution? Was that riot justified? And so I kind of had to sit and think with it a little bit more. I can understand that certain riots, certain events of violence against the government can absolutely be, but neither of these ones were. No.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one thing um, I want to differentiate, because I don't think the mass of the BLM riots was justified, but
Hmm.
I do think, like, so for instance, I think it was, hold on, I wrote it down. I think it was May
Okay.
28th. Uh, yeah, May
Like right
28th
around
is when, huh?
the beginning.
Sorry.
That was like right around the beginning.
Yes, that's when the Minneapolis police station was burned down. Stuff like
Hmm.
that, I actually do think is probably justified for the most part, because it's like a public institution. Um,
Hmm.
would you agree with that?
Now, that is something that I feel like if you had asked me like a couple months ago, I would have agreed with you so quickly. I still agree with you, And I just also have to follow it up with the question of where, how much public institution are we allowed to riot against? Because clearly counting electoral votes is too far. And attacking police stations where we think that people are getting away with, or we can prove people are getting away with regular violence, some people could be agreed to justify. It can be agreed to just that is justified, and I still somewhat do. I think it hurts the community. I think it takes money out of the community, but I do understand that. I do understand why it happens. I don't know if I can necessarily say it's justified.
Okay.
Like their feelings are valid. Like it's true that they're doing it, but I don't think it's true that like the people in those institutions are causing violence against the community and getting away with it. And I don't have like I guess you just have to do the regular somewhat broken way to address that right now where you just try to get them legally because I don't necessarily see us gaining resources or gaining ground off of breaking police station windows.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. See,
I think I talked myself
it's
out of
tough.
that one right there.
It's tough because like I just generally, as far as like morals go, I see like violence against private property, or I guess maybe we should say public property.
Okay.
But you know, it was stores, so I guess it could be considered private property as well.
Yeah, I think you can consider that private. Yeah.
Yeah, I generally see that as you know, not good.
Yeah, way over the line. No point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would generally say that like um, that any violence against public institutions can be justifiable, and then you know, of course, you have to analyze afterwards if it meets justified.
I'll agree with that definition.
Huh?
I said I agree with that definition.
Right. But then, like, kind of what you're saying, I don't. It gets a little hard because I agree that like if you do say that like if your cause is justified and then you riot against public institutions, it's automatically justified as well. There's a problem because then at some point you're going to riot against the public institutions so much that they won't have the funding to actually fix the problem in the first place, and that seems counterproductive as well. And so that's something that I've been struggling with. It seems like I don't know. It seems like the burning down of that police station. It seems like it's still for me kind of justified because it seems like it brought awareness to enough to the point to where like you know there's trying to hopefully be change in that area and whatnot. And so I think that'd be fair. But it's something probably I'm gonna have to analyze more and more and more, I guess.
Yeah, it's justification as an indicator. I think is definitely something we could probably get around to agreeing to here, is because no, we probably shouldn't go around burning the police station like every time something bad happens. Like I had a instance in my local community where police were being, I would just say, less than polite to one of the local business owners. And our response wasn't necessarily to break the police station, and we found a different way to get heard. We just did a protest in town, and the mayor was pressured to showing up and actually speaking to us and addressing some of our concerns. And but at the same time, Minneapolis specifically, I think, like, has been deeply rooted in a lot of racial problems. It's like one of the very common names throughout history that we've just had those types of problems. And I think that their problems aren't necessarily separate, but I think it is definitely more intense in that area. So it's harder to speak on, but the indicator of the burning police station, I think, should be I guess it's just an indicator that we should pay more attention to it, and it's kind of justified in that sense. Like if no one did anything, we'd probably just continue to ignore it, and probably.
Yeah. And,
so yeah, somewhat justified. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, it's probably like over nuanced, but like I have like a pretty I have like a list of like things that probably need to be like met for any riot against a public institution to be justified anyway. You know, things like, oh, are you like actually trying to vote? Are you actually trying to do peaceful protests or, you know, petitions as well? That type of stuff. Are those things met? And so, you know, it's a case by case basis. But
I like those initial conditions on the list. Are you exhausting your other means?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I'm glad though that you agree that I was really worried going into this that maybe you wouldn't agree that violence against public property would be unjustified. that was something I was worried
Mhm.
about, because there's a lot of people on TikTok, or really anywhere, that have tried to justify the BLM riots in
Mhm.
full, um, to great extents, and that's always been something
Mhm.
that's kind of worried me.
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird thing because like not all violence is justified, but our Second Amendment isn't a hunting right. It's a protection from a violent state right. So
Hmm.
it's a balance. It really is a balance.
Hmm. Cool, cool.
There's one thing
Um,
I was curious that I think we might disagree on, but I'm not sure.
okay.
Do you think Donald Trump has some responsibility for inciting what happened?
Um, so yes, I think. So this is something that I've kind of thought about a little bit, although
Hmm.
I try not to think about it too much, because like, I mean, like, I don't want to say I don't care, because I do to a certain extent, but
Hmm.
I've got, once it got to this period of time, I think it was like January, I was so tired of hearing of like anything Donald Trump, that I was just trying to like, push any of it out of my brain. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
but
I do. I
I
feel you
think
on that.
yeah, I think he probably had some 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 responsibility on what happened. I don't know if
Okay.
he intentionally did it.
Hmm.
I One of the things I think is really harmful about Donald Trump is that, like, he
Hmm.
says a lot of things that can lead to bad outcomes. Not because he's intending for bad outcomes necessarily, but because he's just kind of a moron. Like,
Hmm.
I think the thing that people are talking about now, specifically with this, is how there was a rally down the street from the Capitol that day, right? I could be
Hmm.
wrong on this. And then
Yeah, yeah.
he said something about how we're going to go march down to Congress and show these, lawmakers what we want, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a really stupid thing to say. I don't know if he actually like
Hmm.
meant we're going to go kill some Congress people or whatever, but that seemed really. It seemed like a big problem. It seemed like
Hmm.
he doesn't think things like that through enough to realize like what could have happened afterwards. Um,
Yeah.
Although, I mean, some
I
people
think it's.
would make. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I think that is a little bit of a problem for I think both sides because while the left would like to say that he clearly must have intended it, and I think that they get stuck up on trying to prove intent because I don't think you can ever like prove
True.
intent. Like the intent of someone is up for you to make your own opinion so you can like make your relationships with them in the future, that's on you, but like you can never really demonstrate whether or not he meant it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
people try to say, well, he had a rally a mile away, therefore he meant it. And it's like, you guys, you're taking a lot of shortcuts. But also at the same time, like all of the legal avenues were exhausted at the time. So it's yeah, I do feel like there's some culpability there. I don't
Sure.
think I can say he knew what was gonna happen.
Right.
I feel like I can say there's no way like I feel like I can say he shouldn't have expected it to stay 100% peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But also I
Yeah.
don't know if that statement's strong enough on its own to indict him, but I think that there are plenty of other things he did that made people mad enough that, irregardless of intent. Like I don't think you need intent to
Oh yeah.
cause an insurrection. Like that was like the classic yell fire in a crowded room type deal.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk about the intent of what he said, I don't necessarily mean that, like, oh, what he said, or the responsibility that goes on him is
Mm-hmm.
based on whether he had intent to do it or not. The only reason I say that is because, some people may want to
Mm-hmm.
argue, like, or I think more right leaning people would say, like, oh, but he didn't intend to do that, and I would be like, well, I don't know if he did or not. But
Mm-hmm.
my point is mainly is that even if he didn't intend it, there is fault on him, because he doesn't choose his words very carefully. He's very careless, and that's a problem
Mm-hmm.
within itself.
Yeah. Like there's a bunch of things you can may not intend to do, but if you do something illegal, you break the law or someone gets hurt, so like there's always like I think isn't is it criminal negligence. I think that that's even a charge in some cases where it's like, well, I never meant that. It's like, well, clearly not, but like
Right.
come on,
Hmm.
So
Um,
yeah, okay. So we're pretty much in agreement on everything so
yeah.
far.
There's one
Yeah.
thing I want to ask you real quick.
Okay.
Um, this is, I don't know if you've seen these lately, but
Mhm.
I've been in a little scuffle with Victoria Hammett over actually going back to the BLM riots with the with the
Mm-hmm.
Capitol riot, which is the definition of domestic terrorism. And
Oh.
she's gotten really, heated about the BLM riots being called domestic terrorism,
Mm-hmm.
um, because of negative connotations. And then, of course, I got a whole army of Victoria stands coming after me saying like, "Oh, I must be racist because I said that," even though I called the
Mm-hmm.
Capitol riot domestic terrorism as well. Where do you
Mm-hmm.
stand on like things being terrorism? Like, do you think terrorism in itself has to be inherently bad or immoral?
Um. Ooh, does terrorism itself have to be inherently bad or moral? I guess never
And
for the
we
terrorist,
and we can focus
but
on domestic terrorism specifically, not necessarily foreign terrorism, because domestic
okay.
terrorism is pretty, I guess, is
Mm-hmm.
pretty more pointed at what we're talking about here with all these different types of things.
For sure. Well, I'd say that definitely from the perspective of the domestic terrorist, yes, domestic terrorism can be moral in some instances.
Sure, yeah.
For me, I guess that would kind of be conditional on whether or not I was within that group, somewhat.
Hmm.
What I
Okay.
would consider to say, if a group were to be a domestic terrorist in period, would probably be like, are they intentionally committing violence to enforce a political will? And I think I need to strengthen that definition. That's just what I could
Hmm.
uh, land on right now. But I feel like that is basically what you would be called terrorism. Because I think at the end of the day, if you're just doing random violence, like stochastic violence, like yes, you can. I guess that can be a form of terrorism, but I feel like it usually you're trying to bring about some form of action. And
Right.
so I
Exactly.
would say that sorry, really long-winded answer.
No, you're good.
Um, I would say that the political what happened on January 6th would be considered domestic terrorism because people intentionally planned to commit violence. But I wouldn't put Black Lives Matter in the same category because I feel like even though it went on and they were burning cities for months, I feel like for all those months, I like just saw video after video of leadership and individuals trying to stop people from doing violence.
Hmm.
And like the people who plan, a lot of people who plan the rally, like planned for people to bring tear gas, specific things to break windows. So I guess that's how I would differ them. It was the one intended violence and the other one didn't.
Sure, sure. Well, I think that's a pretty fair response.
Thank you.
I think there's good arguments to be made on both sides. I think when we look at like the definition of like domestic terrorism, I'd still call the
Hmm.
BLM riots specifically domestic terrorism because it seems like the people who did go in to do the riots, it seemed
Hmm.
like they were pretty much planning on doing violence. Although you could,
Hmm.
jumping off what you said a little bit, you could make the argument that a lot of those people who did go in there to commit violence, they weren't against the private businesses. They weren't committing that violence in order to like do
Hmm.
violence against other people. They didn't realize the implication of, I guess, of breaking, people's businesses and then the harm that was done. Although,
Hmm.
I,
Or they
I,
could have
I'm a little
realized and
bit
just
more.
not cared.
Yeah, yeah. Right. True. Um, but yeah, I'm a little more, I guess,
Hmm.
consequentialist in some areas. So I would say maybe that doesn't matter as much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess, uh, I think the Capitol riot was a little more premeditated, but still, I think there was probably people on both sides that like had plans of committing some violence, and that's where I would say that. And then, kind of also
Hmm.
going off of what Victoria had said, um, the used or she kind of trying to use like a little bit of a gotcha almost, because she was responding to Cam Higbee originally, and she said something like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, then would you call the civil rights riots domestic terrorism?" And I responded, and I was like, "Well, yeah, probably." But like
Hmm.
the civil rights riots that were going against cops, I would still say that those were justified. Like even if it's domestic terrorism by like definition, depending on what your definition is, I would still
Hmm.
say those are justified.
Wasn't it most of the civil rights like famously nonviolent?
Yes, yes. I think
Hmm.
there was like a week though, where it got really bad as far as violence though. I like I, I
Hmm.
I haven't studied it enough, but I know that there definitely was like a week of riots or something. But
Hmm.
I think it was pretty varied as well. I think there were some riots that were going specifically against like public institutions, and then some were going against private businesses, which obviously I would say is a problem.
For sure. Do you delineate between political violence or like political violence or like opportunistic violence? Like someone
Um,
trying to get someone else elected or like someone trying to take a purse because there's no one else on the street. Like, do you see a difference between these two?
yeah, I do.
So,
Mhm.
would you say that some of the violence, even though it is occurring inside of the BLM, would you say that if it's someone who like doesn't care about the cause, doesn't care about their image, they just want that free TV because hey, the cops are on the other side of town now. Like, would you call that political violence, or would you say that's more opportunistic violence?
I haven't thought about this enough because I guess I've been mainly thinking of this in like a form of like a
Mm-hmm.
collective way instead of it like on the individual. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for those individuals, I would definitely say it was more opportunistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that might be a place where, because I haven't seen any of this. The last thing that I looked into was your little bout with Tyler, and that was actually
Oh yeah.
the response that I had been prepared for. But for this, I
Oh
think you
cool.
guys might just be speaking past each other. They might be looking at like when talking about Black Lives Matter. I think they might be delineating that these violence here is the opportunistic violence, and
Hmm.
that's what, since it's not political violence, it shouldn't be deemed political terrorism. I think that's
Oh
if you
okay.
try if you try broaching that to her next time you talk about it, I think that may be a way to, even if you're still going to disagree at the end,
Yeah.
understand each other more fully.
Okay. That's I didn't even think about that. That's a good way of thinking. Interesting. Wait, what were you talking? So what did you come prepared
Mhm.
for? Prepared for with the Tyler Perry
Um,
stuff?
yeah, I was going to talk a little bit. Well, first I guess I was gonna brush on, since it was talking with the Black Lives Matter stuff, the blacks versus the blacks. I
Yeah.
thought that that was personally, I just don't hear a difference. And we don't have to have a long drawn out thing on it. I just don't hear a
Uh huh.
difference in those two. Like, I'm sure that people have used those terms, like, because I identify as African American.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sure that people have used both those terms in front of me, and I haven't batted an eyelash. I think that if
Sure.
someone was to try and use either of those terms like intentionally wrong, I'm sure I would hear it. But
Hmm.
I just don't necessarily hear a difference. I was surprised on how much response there was over that. Seemed
Yeah.
like a lot
No.
of stuck in the weeds.
Well, yeah. Well, I was honestly,
Hmm.
I was honestly surprised as well because, um, like when it comes to blacks
Hmm.
versus the blacks, like I don't think either of these are like super different either.
Hmm.
Although I would put these in a different class of like phrasing from black people or African Americans or something like that. I would see
Hmm.
these as being more of an issue. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to try and like speak for black people or anything, but
Hmm.
for me, I would just if people were using like the phrase "the blacks" over and over again in a
Hmm.
conversation, for me, I would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
It
if
just
it
seems.
got like repeated, I would probably start to like set up flags, and it's also like the context. Like if they're like describing like certain traits or things, like there are ways that it can be set off. But like if there are just like the red flags get set off. But like if they're
Mhm.
just like saying like there's like a group of people and then like it's clearly like that group of people over there are darker, you just say okay, so we got that group, we got the blacks, and then like there's it just if nothing foul intent is behind it, usually it doesn't seem off. But I guess if it's a point of focus, just tagging people on the end, like it feels really weird to be debating words like this. But I guess tagging people on the end makes it, I guess, more safe, more
Mhm.
appropriate. Like it definitely is sounds more just like regular conversation to me. But
Mhm. Right.
yeah.
Well, and this probably this was also a hard part because it felt I don't know if Tyler like
Hmm.
genuinely was trying to understand my position or if he like was just trying to get gotchas on me because it looked if it looked good. um but it felt like he didn't even understand what I was saying because I never said like,
Hmm.
oh, saying the blacks is racist or definitely offensive to people. Like I was just making the point
Hmm.
that like to a lot of people this is probably uncomfortable, me being one of those people. And like it, the reason it probably sounds very uncomfortable to people is it makes it sound like you're like differentiating them from you as like a different group, and it
Yeah,
just
you're
feels weird.
otherizing them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I agree with
interesting.
that. Yeah, I don't mean to insult Matt, but I don't leave. pick him as one of the more charitable people, one of the more charitable content creators when it comes to genuinely understanding positions.
Oh no, yeah,
Yeah.
I've come to agree with that. I think I
Yeah.
made a on my YouTube,
Mhm.
like in the days after that, I like because I had so much stupid like attacks and stuff from
Mhm.
him and Alex, mainly from him. Alex was much more nice about it afterwards.
Uh-huh.
But he's very persistent on different things, and I got so many ridiculous attacks, especially from his followers. Oh my gosh, his
Mhm.
followers make me want to jump off a cliff.
Yeah,
And
I'm glad they don't raid me yet.
yeah, yeah, and so I made a manifesto on my YouTube actually,
Mhm.
and like this like little mini manifesto, and oh, I can't even remember that. Oh yeah, that's the point I was getting at. Is that like
Mhm.
um, at, in the manifesto or at the beginning of it, I was basically saying like I was like, oh, you know, I don't hate these guys, or like I still hold these guys in high regard. After I made
Mhm.
that, and after I kept on getting like more comments that were like really, really, really
That
stupid or like,
regard drops a little bit.
yeah, I
Yeah.
started to
Yeah.
realize like I just don't think he acts in good faith anymore. I don't. I
Mhm.
think there was a time where he maybe tried to, even if he was like still trying to be trolly or whatever, but
Mhm.
not anymore.
Yeah. He made one trolley response that I kind of agreed with, but he also it was really interesting. I was watching his debate with that other girl you had mentioned. I understand that she's big. I don't get her content on my For You page.
Yeah.
Um they had a debate on abortion, and I remember watching him argue that, and it was kind of weird because while he was doing that and he was trying to say how since the child can't go anywhere else, it's different than like if you're out of a car crash where say like if someone needs blood to survive and you're a donor, you don't have to give it to them because anyone else could give it to them.
Hmm.
And it kind of just made me think about if you could put a baby in a box when the box, it wouldn't survive in the box, like it wouldn't get birth from the box, it would live in there for maybe a week, and anyone else could come in and choose to carry that baby to full term. I feel like
Hmm.
that would be an allowable way for him to accept abortions to be committed, which would just be them dying in a box instead of in the womb.
Hmm.
And it just kind of, I feel like that was the last time I saw him try to argue in good faith, and it just didn't seem like a whole argument because it's like, well, the second that, and it's gonna sound a little bit weird when I say it like this, but I think this is how a lot of people like on the far left really hear it. It's like if anyone else but a woman could carry this, sure, yeah, we could let it die. But if only the woman can carry it, well, now you got a job.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of how it comes off. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's the strongest opinion I've heard from him in a while. I
Hmm.
do you have a similar view to him on that, or because
Kinda. I mean,
yeah, because I saw you guys also going back and forth. That's the other thing I was somewhat ready to talk about.
yeah, yeah. I did a debate review of his, and
Hmm.
I think of that one you're talking about maybe,
Hmm.
and of his one with Vosh as well. And I think he did okay in the one with her. For the most part, I think he definitely rhetorically sounded much better than her. But
Hmm.
the me and him differ a little bit on. So as far as like the morality of it goes, I agree with him in the conclusion. Although I think the his process of getting to that conclusion of being pro-life is a little flawed in some instance. Like the things that
Hmm.
I mainly focus on are the agency of the mother, and then the lack of agency and dependency from the child. That's where I
Hmm.
mainly focus on. And then
Right.
pragmatically, or like I guess on policy, I differ from him quite a bit. And then of
Hmm.
course he's strawman me really hard with that, which is I would love to get us to a pro-life society,
Hmm.
but it's going to take some work to get there. A lot of pro-lifers act like we can do this tomorrow and it'll all work fine, and it's going to be all dandy. I just disagree with that. I
Hmm.
everything that I do, or everything that I advocate for, or even that I don't advocate for as far as systems go, I always say that if you're going to do it, we got to do it through like a pragmatic, like
Yeah.
small step to get there. We can't just like radically change it and expect everything to go well.
Yeah. There's no
But yeah,
point in banning abortions if it makes the overall number of abortions go up. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
um,
I am trying to absorb that opinion the best I can. I actually watched a couple of your responses to it, and this is one of the few times where I feel, and I'm really not trying to be offensive or like give you a
No, you're good.
position, but I do feel like that is the pro-choicer position. Like, I don't think any of us want
Hmm.
abortion to be the primary form of healthcare or like have it. I'm sure some people say it, but I
Hmm.
don't think that like at the end of the day, anyone who actually ever comes like personally close with this issue genuinely feels that way.
Yeah.
And I just think that like we would love to have a situation where it doesn't happen, where maybe even if we could have the box and have it be promised that people will come and pick them up. Like make sure like have it all guaranteed. That would be like the ideal way to get there. But I think the pro-choice position is that we acknowledge since we're not there, it's up to you to make the choice of what you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. No, and well, I agree. I think there's been a video. It had to have been a long time from now, but there was a
Mhm.
video where I said, like, yeah, I would be considered pro-choice on policy. Like, I think you can make the argument that I'm pro-life-ish on policy because I want to get us to a pro-life society, whereas a lot of
Mhm.
pro-choicers maybe don't want us to get to that type of society. But yeah, I mean, for basic terms sake, I am pro-choice on policy. Not my point, or my
Mhm.
problem with always with Tyler was he kind
Mhm.
of, and I didn't have a problem with his meme that said this necessarily because I always make memes on people, so I expect that people should be making memes on me as well. Like I don't have a
Right.
problem with them.
We're here to work on the internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but beyond that meme, he has said that like, oh, so you're basically just okay with killing kids for like financial reasons, and I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, that's a pretty extremely watered down, version of what I've said.
Mhm. Would it make you feel more comfortable if you said you're okay with killing kids, but then just named every reason you have that would have to come together to make it acceptable?
Hmm, maybe if you like, I guess phrase it in the way that like, I'm
Mhm.
okay with kids. I guess maybe I'm just too sensitive. I would be more
No,
okay if you said, "Oh, you're okay with kids being killed up until the point where like it's possible for us to not let kids be killed." That's
Mhm.
maybe the way I would be more happy with it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky position because you're trying to take like the genuine honored stance of like I want less death and I want to take the
Mhm.
actual steps to less death.
Yeah,
And sometimes the actual steps to less death are not the most obvious ones where it's like you allowed like every time I hear someone say so what you just kill kids I'm like this we should walk away from this conversation now because this is going to
yeah.
go nowhere
Hmm.
and yeah it's rough so I definitely respect that position. I get that. I understand why people are trying to mistitle you or say that you are a pro-choicer.
Right, right, right.
And
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's just kind of because the whole thing is been mixed up. The whole choice, like the pro-life versus pro-choice names, I think is part of that thing where it's similar to like defund the police, where it's like, well, clearly we don't want to take all their money away, but some people are like, well, if you're not defund the police, like you're against us, or like if you are for
right.
defund the police, you want nothing. It's the name kind of helps polarize people.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, here's something fun. Quick fun aside. New political position. I'm trying to get more people to take it. Make all political parties illegal. If someone claims to be a Republican or Democrat, throw them in jail. Force people to run on their ideas.
Oh, interesting.
Ah, yeah. See, you're
Okay.
against it. You're against it. But then all of a sudden, the very
Hmm.
end, I get you.
It's not a bad idea. See,
Yeah.
um,
It's my meme idea for right now, because who you
yeah,
know that
yeah,
this if you make them illegal today, tomorrow there'll be new ones that form. So yeah, it's my
right.
fun meme idea.
That's true, I guess. Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, it's the idea of candidates running on positions instead of a label makes it sound so much better. But
Right, like I'm on the blue team. Vote me. We got more blue
mhm.
team people here. Like,
So, wait, what would you consider yourself? I
hmm
from this conversation, it does not seem like you're a lefty necessarily.
yeah. So I'm not sure in all the different discourse I tried to keep up in the beginning because I was at first a supporter of Bernie. I
Uh huh.
don't know the difference between lefty, leftist, liberal, how like the connotations between them. I would call myself a liberal, or I would maybe also take the name of progressive.
Oh yeah.
I register as Democrat. I acknowledge that they're really fucking bad. But I think
Hmm.
that I have the best chance at reforming them to get my outcome.
Hmm.
So I don't like being a Democrat, but I am one, and I think that's where I am right now.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah. When I say lefty, I
Hmm.
mean specifically like I guess people on TikTok. I say it very loosely, but not realizing probably that like a lot of people on TikTok might not actually know what I mean by that. But, like when I say lefty, I
Hmm.
basically just mean like socialist commie. Basically,
Yeah,
is what I'm
the
talking.
people who go all the way off to the side.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, I mean, I would consider myself like a liberal as well to some extent.
Hmm.
Although that's my main ideology is Mattism, of course. But
Yeah. For an arc. I identified as a democratic socialist because Bernie Sanders, and then I've revisited that, and I am actually a social democrat because
oh,
I would rather just have social programs in democracy rather than some forms of democracy in a socialist state.
uh-huh. Yes, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get that. Yeah, economically, I'm a lot closer to a
Hmm.
sockdom. I would say.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily agree with everything on Bernie's like wish list, I guess economically, but
Hmm.
um, especially because like economics is really hard for me as well.
Yeah.
But I try.
Yeah. I actually really liked economics in high school. No, I think I took a little stint of it in. No, yeah, it was high school. Then I didn't fucking touch it again. Maybe I just had the easier version. But yeah, no. All I remember is when I thought I got an accidental A in economics, and I was like, maybe I might do this. And then I saw economists for weeks get shit on, and I was just like, no, no, I'm good. Give me something else. What else? Is there another door? Maybe? Is there?
Right.
Oh
That's
Lord.
interesting. Yeah. I yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. So, I
Hmm.
mean, are you on political TikTok pretty like heavily? Like I don't know
I used
are you
I
Oh,
used to
sorry,
be
go ahead.
more. I had a bunch, like I had three really like 2 hour long debates with Emmanuel Haruno, a while back, and those were pain.
Who
Actually,
who is
Emmanuel.
that? That name sounds familiar, but I can't picture who that is.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just need to get on like a better side of political TikTok. He's a black TikToker. He shaved all of his head recently for charity, and he just basically makes like the same type of videos over and over again.
Oh.
And I brought him on a couple times to ask. I was like, hey, like you posted this video, but this video is actually incorrect, and this is fake news. Like, are you going to issue a correction? And then like I talked to him a few weeks later and be like, hey, did those ever corrections ever come out? Did you look into these videos? Are you reading your shit now? And he's like, no, I'm still not reading it. Now my friends just kind of send me stuff and I post it, and I'm like, can we expect this from you? And he's like, I mean, you can expect this from all of us, yeah. And so I kind of had, after that, I set him down. I kind of just walked away. School started, and I was like, I need to take some me time
Hmm.
because that it was incredibly frustrating.
Hmm. Interesting. So, are you like mainly a streamer then now, or?
Yeah, well, I always wanted it to be mainly gaming.
Oh,
I
okay.
mostly got pulled into the political sphere because right when I started my stream, because it was back when the pandemic started, I was just I'm good at expressing my ideas for the most part, and I brought during what's it called? The season where we vote. Election season.
Uh,
Sorry.
Election season.
Of course, forget my words right after I say I'm good at expressing myself. What the fuck is um during election season, political content is super popular, so I figured that I care about it, I read about it regularly, I might as well talk about it. So I got in, and now that it's less popular, I'm focusing more on my gaming and just graduating college.
Cool. All right. I was just curious.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, yeah, it's it seems like you're big into the streaming, so I didn't know how deep in you were on there or on TikTok or whatever. But
Hmm. Yeah, no,
uh,
I honestly, if I was better at my TikTok game, I would probably be doing a little bit better at my Twitch game. I'll just have like 5 days in a row go and not post anything. Just be like, fuck. Okay, fine, I'll make something. So.
Yeah, I know. It's really hard. Like I get, man, I get in these spurts where like, um, and I want to move away from TikTok, but it's really hard because like I have a good amount of followers, but like, it's really hard to mobilize followers away sometimes from your like main like platform, I guess. And so I don't have enough. I feel like to move, like I'm trying to move to YouTube, and I've been getting more, but I actually don't remember where I was going with this, but oh yeah, like I get in these like seasons where like, man, there's like a whole like weekend or whatever where I can't think about politics, anymore because like TikTok is just whatever, it's dead, it's stupid, and then like now, like right now, I'm getting on finally like getting back into the groove of it, which is good because like I'm in the creator fund, and
nice,
yeah.
Yeah, so, I think I'm still like 4K followers short of that right now.
You were a lot lower though, weren't you? A while back. You didn't have 5,000.
Yeah, I didn't have a TikTok account, I think, until I started streaming, and then like I blew up, and then right around when I started going back to school, it tapered off again because school. Yeah. Trying to become an electrical engineer, and brah, if that doesn't kick the shit out of me every week.
I don't imagine. All right.
Is every class is just math. We burned through Black Lives Matter. We burned through January 6th, definitions for insurrection. We talked about our content. We got into 2 of the other things you went into, all the abortion stuff I had prepared. We got into blacks versus the blacks. Bro, I think we hit it all. I don't know. Yeah, I have nothing else prepared.
I will say, hey, if I ever get it, because okay, so like recently I just there was the Ted Cruz thing, and then with the Marcus guy or whatever, and a lot of that split up my followers. One of the interesting things about my page, which is actually a lot of people probably think I hate it, but I love it, is that like every once in a while I'll give a take that like half of my followers just absolutely disagree with me on, and that's always interesting to me. And so I'd imagine that would continue on from here on out. So like if you ever see like a take and you're bored, I'm down to jump back on here because this is fun.
Yeah, dude, you're one of the most, you actually probably are the most enjoyable person I've had a conversation with, coming in expecting you to at least be on the other side of the political aisle for me. And we agree on actually an insane amount of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to be on and talk to you again.
Yeah, I'd love it too. Yeah, this was fun.
For sure. So I guess that's everything. We're still connected. We're now connected on Discord. Got you on TikTok. Next time, half your followers get off your page. Let's do it. Let's talk it through.
Sounds good to me. All right, cool.
All right, I hope you have an awesome Sunday, dude.
Hey, yeah, you too, man. I'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye.
That was really fun. That was really dope. Now, that is a person that I need to follow and listen more of. I was really going through his content, like, for a ton of stuff to talk about, and I expected us to go for hours. I forgot what it was like to talk to an honest interlocutor. Oh, that feels so good. Quick, I need to start some drama. I'm gonna start some drama and get him back on the call. That was great. Shit, what do you guys think? Oh my god. Of all the times for it to be empty in here. I'm at a loss for words. What a great dude. Mattvs.Politics, everybody. I'm gonna make sure I get his tag right, so that way you can make sure to follow him and all that. TikTok. Just go to TikTok. His last thing should be the thing open. No, not TikTok. That's absolutely... I don't need the FBI to knock my door down. TikTok. There we go. Where is he? There it is. Yes. All right. So if you would like to find more about him, his name is Mattvs.Politics. MATTVS. Politics. I'm not spelling that for you. Figure out how to spell politics. You're a grown adult, probably. Okay. I'm in a great mood. Do you want to just like scroll TikTok for a while, guys? We're chilling. Let's go chill. Look at this. Hold up. Check this out. Oh, my face is gonna move. Oh, it just zoomed in. That's amazing. I love that. Okay. We went through all of this. All of it. We went through all of it. He even brought up consciously and all that. So, yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely amazing.